up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Joe McFo Show. I am so sorry that I couldn't upload a video last week like I normally do, but as you could probably tell by the location, I have moved to a different place, and so I've been really busy with that, and thank you all for your patience. I promise I don't think there should be another delay like this for quite some time, if ever. Anyway, that's not what you guys are here for. You guys are here most likely, I assume, because you want to see me draw something. And so what I decided to do, I wanted to take some of your suggestions and some of your comments from the last video that I did. And a lot of you wanted me to continue drawing this character specifically. And so what I did is I completed the drawing. I had a lot of fun with it, and you're gonna hear me talk about my process and how I went about things. So enjoy the video. Also want to give a big shout out to Angie Schaefer, who gave me a name for this character, and so we're gonna call her Ola. Unless someone can come up with a name that I like better, then I'm just gonna stick with that one for now. So one of the first things that I do whenever I start a design is I always look to see if there's something I can improve on. So there's a couple of changes I'm making in the red. I am giving her longer pants, giving her skirt, changing the bracelets, and adding some details on her shirt and things like that. And those for me really help because I think that it just gives me a better understanding of who the character is. And sometimes when I'm just going on stream of conscience at first, there are some design decisions that aren't as strong, and so I'll just edit those early on so that I can give myself a better shot at making a design that looks cooler. And then I get right into the face. I usually start off with that because it helps me get into who this character is. And Ola is someone who I imagine will be very regal, very elegant. And so by putting that there first, it just helped me to figure out who she was and get more connected with her. I also start pretty early with the inking because a lot of the stuff was already figured out. The last video was the sketch phase. That was a lot of the thinking, and I'm still doing a lot of thinking here, but it's different. These are things I'm starting to finalize, and the lines are much cleaner so that I don't get distracted. And distraction for me is one of the most difficult things when it comes to design, because there's so many things I like and things that I want to add, but sometimes they don't end up working in the long run, and you have to be willing to let certain things go for the sake of a final result and making that look better. Now, I'll also be honest with you guys, there was a point in this drawing where I actually really wasn't even liking my line work. For those of you who know me, I am very dedicated to making all the line work I do look very, very strong, particularly because I struggled with that for a long time. A lot of my lines used to be very scratchy, or even when I tried to do cleaner lines and cleaner artwork, there was something about them that didn't feel authentic. So now I kind of overcompensate by doing a much more focused version of how the drawing is supposed to be. And so I'll really kind of go in on that. And it takes a while. That's the thing about art. It takes a long time sometimes. So here I'm adding some of the details and the pearls on her necklace. I like to just draw the whole circle shape, and then I'll erase the lines later. I think that's just the easiest to go about it that way. It's much easier to think of things in a full shape rather than in a segment. And one of the things you're seeing here is like changing those earrings, partially just because the line was making a tangent between the earring and the neck, and so I felt if I could make it shorter, then that would help it. So sometimes I'll change little things like that just for simple reasons. Now I'm giving her the bracelets, and I'm double checking with the 8-head cannon. You guys probably saw that tutorial from me, but I always want to check with that because there are times where I make these changes and sometimes anatomically it doesn't fit. And if I'm drawing these realistic characters, then I want to make sure that that's something that still holds up, because that's just kind of the way that I go about things. Now, if I was doing something a lot more cartoony, something that was maybe in the style of like a Powerpuff Girls or something like that, then I might not do that. But for now, I am adjusting. And this is the stage where I'm figuring out a lot of the stuff, because before, in the last video, I was sketching a lot. I was doing a lot of figuring things out, but now I'm trying to finalize things and make it actually look pretty, and that adds a lot of stress for me sometimes. So I'll end up doing things like redrawing these red lines, which are basically where her body's supposed to be lined up. And so I'm checking and say, okay, maybe the proportions are off. Let me just double check to see how the muscles are flowing and make sure the forearm isn't too long and that this all makes sense. Pinching the waist. There's all these little decisions that this stuff comes down to. And once you know enough of the anatomy, and once you do this enough, it starts to make a lot more sense. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, so I won't say it's second nature to me, but it's definitely something I'm much more comfortable with. And I'm also adding to the design. So something I didn't think about at the very beginning was this huge sort of triangle sash, or whatever you want to call it, flap in the front of her legs. That's something that was just completely random. I thought, you know what, this might make for a cool looking design. And I'm redrawing the legs and the pants. Something that I really wanted to focus on with the pants too is because they're a little baggier, I personally have a tendency to make them so baggy to the point where the shapes almost become too self-important. One of my teachers told me about that description one time, where basically I added so much detail to the bags of the pants that it took away from the rest of the design and it made it just look ugly, for lack of a better word. And so simple is often better, especially when you're talking about animation and comics or things like that, usually entertainment design, because if you're going to have a whole team following this design and focusing on how you're going to be drawing this, you want to make sure that it's readable for everybody and that everyone can adjust to this style by not adding too many lines, because the more lines you add, realistically, the longer it's going to take to draw it. Now, something else you guys are seeing me do is I'm often rotating my canvas because it's easier for me to draw, and I'm also zooming out a lot. And by zooming out, it helps me to get a fuller picture of what is actually going on in the design. So sometimes I get tunnel vision and I'm zoomed in so much and I don't see what it's really looking like, and I'll add lines that are unnecessary, or sometimes the lines are just not making sense, and so I have to simplify them. And worst things that happen, sometimes it's not in the right perspective, or it's not the right size, or something simple like that, and so I'll have to readjust that. So by constantly zooming in and out, I get a much better layout of what's actually going on. It's sort of like looking at a map. You get a much broader vision of what's actually happening. And at this point, I'm actually starting to get pretty happy with it, but I'm working on the little details. So sometimes it could be something as simple as making sure the skirt lines up properly and it's making a good circular shape. Sometimes it's just making sure the pants don't get too thin in one part, too thick in one part to make it look unattractive or unappealing. And then sometimes it's just trying to match the other leg. So I believe I fixed that leg on her right leg, our left. I fixed that ankle area because it was thinner on the other one and I had it too thick. And so now I'm just fixing that and making sure everything is consistent. Something else I also like to do is, it's a really subtle trick, but if you're changing forms, or if there's a different object like an arm in front of the waist or something like that, or the skirt, sometimes I will just make those lines thicker whenever something overlaps like that to create a better sense of depth, and it really helps to push the design, and it makes it so that it doesn't really confuse the viewer as to what's in front of what. Changing up the size of the feet and making sure everything's at its right angle. And then I'm just adding a little bit more detail in the headdress. Not really sure what those are actually called. I should probably do some research on that before I comment on it. But just wanted to add some more elegance. I don't want to add so much detail where it's distracting, but I do want to add some things to make it feel elegant. And then I'm just adding these designs. Now, ordinarily in animation, a design this complex would not work, but because I don't really know what I'm going to do with her yet, I'm just having fun, and I'm just trying to put these fun patterns in just to see what can happen. I don't really have a game plan for it, and if it comes down to me wanting to eventually animate this character one day, then I will probably redesign that and redo it. But I did have a lot of fun trying it out. Now I'm just adding some details on the front flap there and making sure it all makes sense. I drew it in a different color, by the way, just to help me read it a little bit better. Whenever I'm doing something that I think is going to be a permanent change, sometimes I like just changing the color. It helps me focus better. And then I'll fill the character in with yellow so that I can create a clipping mask when I start putting the shadows in. And that helps me a lot, just again, to push the depth. It makes it look cooler, I think. And it makes it feel more complete whenever you have shadows on something. It doesn't feel like something that's half-baked, you know? And I imagine the lighting coming from the top right, and so I basically just thought about the planes of the body and the head and the leg and all that stuff, and just figured, okay, what would happen if light were coming from this direction? How would the lighting affect the character? And treat it like it's a real person. One trick you guys can do, if you have like an action figure or something like that, sometimes you can actually put a light in front of it, and then you'll get a perfect sense of where the lighting is supposed to go and the shadows and stuff. But this about wraps up the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching me draw Ola. Thank you again, Angie, for naming her, and I hope to see you all next time. Also want to let you guys know that I started up my own Patreon page, so if you guys want to continue to support the Joe McFo Show and me individually as an artist, that's really going to help me out, and it'll allow me to produce more content for you guys. So if you're interested, please support. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will see you next time. Peace.